What happens when a man known for his quiet intensity, razor-edged calm, and explosive presence steps onto a talk show built on sharp tongues and louder tempers? The answer, as the audience at The View would soon discover, is a collision so powerful that it left the studio trembling. Before we dive into the moment Jason Statham shut down Whoopi Goldberg and ignited a reaction no one saw coming, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, like this video, and drop a comment to tell us whose side you would have taken. Now, let's go inside the moment it all went off the rails. The air inside the studio wasn't just buzzing, it was vibrating, like someone had stretched a wire across the room and was plucking it every few seconds. Jason Statham sat quietly in his chair, hands folded, shoulders still. He looked like a man who'd been placed at the center of a storm and knew it would blow eventually. Whoopi Goldberg sat across from him, leaning back in her seat, eyes narrowed with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The other hosts? They were shifting slightly, reading something unspoken in the air, sensing that today's interview wouldn't follow the usual polite script. It started softly. It always does. A question about Jason's upcoming film, a gritty action thriller he'd poured months of work into, took the conversation into safe territory. He answered with that familiar dry British charm, measured, modest, but with a spark behind the eyes. But the spark shifted the moment Whoopi leaned forward. "So, Jason," she said with that slow, almost teasing cadence she used when she was ready to challenge a guest. "You're known for your tough guy roles, the punching, kicking, bone-breaking type. Do you ever worry that people think that's all you can do?" The audience reacted immediately, half with laughter, half with a drawn breath. It was a jab wearing a smile. Jason didn't smile back. His jaw flexed just a touch, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. "I don't worry much about what people think I can or can't do," he said simply. "I focus on doing the work right. The rest sorts itself out." Whoopi gave a short laugh, sharp enough to cut the air. "Come on, Jason. You've been doing the same guy for 20 years. You hit people in different rooms. That's not exactly range." A few audience members let out surprised, "Oh," sounds. Someone even clapped. Jason's eyes lifted to her slowly, like a lion raising its head, not aggressive, but undeniably powerful. "I think you're simplifying it," he said, and the calm in his voice made the air inside the studio thicken. "There's more to a performance than the surface." Behind them, the crew exchanged looks. The other hosts shifted. Sunny's eyebrows lifted. Sarah straightened in her chair. Something was happening, and they all knew it. Whoopi didn't back down. In fact, she leaned further in. "Well, look, if all people see is fists, maybe it's because you're not giving them anything else to see." The temperature in the room dropped. For a moment, the studio felt like it had stopped breathing. Jason inhaled slowly, the kind of breath you take when you choose patience over fire. "I'd be happy to talk about the deeper parts of my work," he said, "if you'd like to ask about them." The audience reacted again, laughter mixed with a few scattered claps. People were leaning forward now, sensing the tension, feeling the energy rise. It wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a standoff. Whoopi tilted her head, lips pursed. "All right then, let's talk about it. Because to me, it looks like Hollywood has you stuck in a box." Jason's voice dropped half an octave. "And you think you know the box I'm in?" That line, delivered with calm precision, sent a murmur through the studio. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakably uncomfortable. Whoopi's smile tightened. "Jason, I've been in this industry for decades. I've seen a lot of people get boxed in. You're not the first. And you're not wrong about the industry," Jason replied, his eyes locked onto hers. "But I don't think you've seen what I do behind the scenes. You're making assumptions based on what you see on screen. That's your job, fair enough. But you're talking like you know me. You don't." A ripple went through the audience, like a shockwave. Some gasped. Some laughed. A few whispered urgently to each other. Whoopi straightened. "Well, Jason, this is a talk show. We're here to talk. If you don't like questions..." "It's not the questions," he cut in gently but firmly. "It's the way you're asking them." The silence after that sentence was so heavy you could feel it press against your skin. Even the cameras seemed to zoom in slower. Sarah cleared her throat softly. "Maybe we can shift a bit," she said, trying to smooth the atmosphere. "Jason, can you tell us about the emotional core of your new film? You mentioned in another interview that this one was personal." Jason turned to her, and instantly, the energy changed. His shoulders unlocked. His expression softened. He nodded. "Yeah," he said, "it is personal. The main character goes through the struggle of being judged on one part of himself. People see what he does, not who he is. That's something I think a lot of people relate to. Whoopi cut in again, quick and sharp. So you're saying you relate to being misunderstood? Jason didn't look at her. He kept speaking to Sarah, but the steel beneath his voice sharpened. In some ways, yeah. I think everyone's been put in a box at some point. Whoopi scoffed audibly. Jason, come on. You're one of the biggest action stars on the planet. I don't know how much sympathy you're expecting. And that was the moment everything shifted. Jason turned back to her slowly, and the entire audience leaned with him, as if drawn by gravity. His eyes locked onto hers, unblinking, steady, calm to the point of intimidation. I'm not asking for sympathy, he said. I'm asking for a fair conversation. The room erupted, not loudly, but in pure, electrified tension. People whispered. Someone in the back actually said, "Damn," under their breath. Whoopi opened her mouth to respond, but Jason wasn't done. I've been on a lot of shows, he said, his voice steady, including ones where the hosts pushed hard. Tough questions don't bother me. But undermining someone's work to get a reaction, that's not a conversation. That's just noise. Boom. The studio reacted instantly, gasps, murmurs, shifting seats. Some people clapped. Others covered their mouths. The sound was chaotic but hushed, like a storm building inside a bottle. Whoopi stared at him, eyes narrowing, lips pressed tight. You could see the irritation rising, slow and simmering. Well, she said, voice low. If you think this show is just noise, you're welcome to say so. Jason didn't blink. I think today it's getting close. That line hit like a punch. Not loud, not violent, just precise, clean, surgical. The audience exploded, this time for real. Cheers, gasps, laughter, even a few whistles. The crew was wide-eyed. The other hosts froze in place. Whoopi's expression shifted, not anger, not shock, something in between. A flash of disbelief. Maybe even insult. Wow, she said slowly. Okay. Jason leaned back in his seat, and the way he moved, the slow, deliberate composure, was like a man reclaiming the space around him. I'm here to talk about the work, he said evenly. Not to be dismissed before I've had a chance to speak. Whoopi crossed her arms. And I'm here to ask questions. And I've answered them, he replied. The audience owed again, louder now. They were hooked. Completely. No one blinked. You could practically hear the lights buzzing overhead. Sunny leaned forward, hands clasped. Let's all take a breath, she said, trying to cool the flames without stepping into them. Jason, when you say dismissed, do you mean that you felt the tone was unfair? Jason nodded once. Yes. Whoopi's eyebrows shot up. Unfair. Unnecessarily so, he said. A collective gasp. The crowd loved it, some for the confrontation, some for the honesty. Whoopi gave a small, incredulous laugh. Jason, this is the View. We don't do softball here. Jason nodded again. And I don't do disrespect. The reaction was instant. The kind of sound a crowd makes when something truly unexpected happens. The studio was alive, charged, electric, dangerous. Whoopi's jaw tightened. You think I'm disrespecting you? Jason didn't hesitate. I think you're trying to diminish what I do. A stunned silence blanketed the room. Even the hosts' faces went stiff. Whoopi's voice turned colder. If you're so sensitive about your work, maybe. It's not sensitivity, he said, interrupting with quiet force. It's principle. For a moment, just a moment, Whoopi looked thrown. Not defeated. Not scared. Just surprised that Jason Statham, the man everyone assumed was allergic to vulnerability, was standing his ground so cleanly, so calmly, and so publicly. And then the audience did something no one expected. They clapped. Not scattered applause. A wave. Strong. Loud. United. It rose from the back row like a tide and swept across the room. Whoopi blinked, looking around, taken aback by the shift in energy. This wasn't her crowd anymore. Not in this moment. Jason didn't acknowledge the applause. Not even with a smile. He simply sat there, steady as stone, letting the room react around him. The tension wasn't just high, it was climbing. Escalating. The kind of tension that had no intention of settling down. Not yet, because this was only the beginning. The applause didn't fade gently. It shattered, abruptly dropping into silence like someone had pulled the plug on the entire room. The shift was so sudden that even Jason's eyes flickered, just for a moment, as if he too felt the floor tilt beneath them. Whoopi sat straighter in her chair, not leaning forward now, not smirking. She watched him the way someone watches a wave right before it breaks, calculating, bracing, refusing to show an inch of weakness. Across the table, Sunny and Sarah exchanged tight glances. Anna, normally quick with a quip to break tension, was unusually still. The atmosphere had thickened into something almost physical, a weight pressing against everyone's ribs. "Let's move forward," Sarah said finally, her voice softer than usual. "Jason, your new film." But Whoopi wasn't ready to move forward. "Not yet." "No," she said, lifting one hand slightly. "Hold on." Her eyes didn't leave Jason. "I want to understand something. Because it sounds to me like you came here today looking for a fight." The audience gasped. Some leaned forward. Others shook their heads. A few whispered, "No, no, no," under their breath. Jason's face didn't change, not even a twitch. He sat like a man carved from stone, but his eyes, they sharpened. "If I came here for a fight," he said quietly, "I would have brought gloves." That line struck the crowd like lightning. Laughter burst out, loud, uncontrolled, startled. But mixed with it was another sound, cheers, claps, voices shouting out. The studio, for a moment, felt like a stadium. Whoopi didn't laugh. She didn't blink. "You're being a smartass," she said plainly. Jason met her gaze evenly. "I'm being honest." There it was again, the calm, the control, the refusal to match her fire with fire. He wasn't escalating, he was grounding. And somehow that made the air even more volatile. Sunny stepped in quickly, and her voice carried that practiced mediator's tone, steady and purposeful. "Both of you make strong points. Jason, I think the viewers at home might be curious. How do you handle criticism in general? Not here specifically, but in the industry. You've dealt with a lot of it." Jason turned to her, and the shift was instant again. He respected the tone, the fairness. "Criticism's part of the job," he said. "I've never run from it. But there's a difference between critique and dismissal." Whoopi's breath caught the mic, sharp, audible. She wasn't done. "So you think I dismissed you?" she asked, each word slow and precise. Jason didn't look away from Sunny, though his answer was for Whoopi. "Yes." The audience reacted again, this time with a mixture of murmurs and soft groans. Some stared at Whoopi with wide eyes. Others studied Jason like they were witnessing a chess match with stakes no one fully understood yet. Whoopi leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, expression shifting into something darker. "You think just because you do some stunts and throw some punches on screen, you deserve special treatment?" Jason finally turned to her. "That's exactly the kind of assumption I'm talking about." The room froze. He didn't raise his voice, not once. But the tone had changed. There was something new in it. Something heavier. Anna stepped in cautiously. "Whoopi, maybe we should focus on." "No," Whoopi snapped, then immediately softened her volume, though the edge remained. "No, I'm talking to Jason." Jason lifted his chin slightly. Not a challenge, not defiance, but a signal that he wasn't backing down. "What do you want to know?" he asked calmly. Whoopi stared at him for a long second, the tension stretching so thin it began to hum. "All right," she said. "Tell me then. What's the deeper part of your work I'm apparently missing?" Jason inhaled. Exhaled. "My roles," he said slowly, "aren't about fists. They're about choices. They're about men trying to survive a world that's already stacked against them. People broken by their pasts. People fighting for someone else. People who've lost things that mattered." He paused, his voice steady but softer now. "You see a punch," he continued. "I see a man trying not to lose what little he has left." The audience absorbed that line like a wave. It washed over them, quiet, reflective, unexpectedly emotional. But Whoopi wasn't moved. Her expression didn't soften. Her posture didn't shift. "That's a lovely speech," she said flatly. "But let's be real. People buy tickets to see you beat somebody up. You built your career on violence." Jason's jaw tightened for the first time, subtle, but there. "And you built yours on comedy," he said. "But I don't reduce you to jokes." A stunned silence dropped onto the room, so abrupt the audience almost recoiled. Whoopi's eyes widened just slightly, then narrowed again. "Oh," she said. "That's how it is?" Jason didn't break. "I'm giving you the same courtesy you're giving me." Sunny's hands came up gently. Okay, this is getting personal. Let's breathe." But the audience wasn't breathing. They were glued to it, wide-eyed, leaning in, absorbing every second like they were watching something they'd rewatched 10 times later. Whoopi shook her head slowly. "Jason, you're acting like you're being attacked." Jason leaned forward, not aggressively, but deliberately. "And you're acting like I'm a stereotype." The weight of those words dropped like a stone. The crowd erupted again, some cheering, some gasping, some shaking their heads at the sheer boldness of the line. The energy was chaos, alive, unpredictable, almost dangerous. Sarah actually whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath, barely audible but captured by her mic. Whoopi held Jason's gaze. "I know who you are. I've seen your movies. I've seen the way you talk in interviews. I've seen you play the same guy again and again." Jason nodded once. "Then maybe you're watching the wrong things." That got the loudest reaction yet. Cheers, roars, even someone yelling, "Jason for the win," from the back row. But Whoopi wasn't intimidated. Not even a little. "You're trying to make me look like a bully," she said quietly. Jason shook his head. "No, I'm trying to make you see that your approach today was unfair." Whoopi's expression hardened. "I don't care if it was fair or not. This isn't a movie where you get to control the script." Jason's eyes sharpened. "No, but I control how I respond." The air cracked. It wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. But it was the shift, the big one. The moment the power dynamic tilted. Anna leaned forward. "Whoopi, maybe we should." "No," Whoopi repeated, but her voice trembled slightly, not with fear, but with irritation. "If he wants a serious conversation about depth, fine. Let's talk about depth." Jason waited. "You say your characters fight for something," Whoopi continued. "What exactly are you fighting for today?" The audience murmured. A few held their breath. It was a sharp question. A clever one. The kind that could corner someone if they weren't ready. Jason didn't flinch. "I'm fighting for respect." The crowd roared, not loud but long. Deep. As if they had been waiting for him to say exactly that. Whoopi watched him with unreadable eyes. "And you think you're not getting it?" she asked. Jason's voice turned quiet. "Not from you." The reaction shook the room. Some people cheered. Others gasped. A few covered their mouths. The emotional temperature spiked again, this time higher, sharper. Whoopi opened her mouth, but Jason continued, not in anger, but with a steady gravity that drew every ear in the room. "I came here to talk about my film," he said. "But right now we're talking about something else entirely. And that's fine. But let's call it what it is." Whoopi's voice was low. "And what is it?" Jason leaned forward slightly. "A power play." Boom. The word detonated across the studio. People reacted with shock, excitement, disbelief. Sunny's eyes widened. Sarah reached for her water. Anna exhaled sharply. Whoopi stared at him, stunned, not dramatically, not exaggeratedly, but genuinely taken aback. Jason didn't stop. "You tried to box me in," he said calmly. "You tried to define me. And when I pushed back, you doubled down." Whoopi swallowed. "Because I don't back off. And neither do I." The audience exploded. This time it wasn't scattered noise. It was chaos. Cheers, claps, people shouting, "WO." Someone actually stood up and yelled, "Let him cook." The studio producers, just off stage, were frantically signaling, probably debating whether to cut to commercial. But the hosts at the table were frozen, the moment too huge to disrupt. Jason lowered his voice, making the room lean in closer. "I came here in good faith," he said. "But if you step on someone's work, you should expect them to stand up for it." Whoopi's eyes narrowed. "I didn't step on anything." Jason shook his head. "Yes, you did. And I'm telling you now, I won't let that slide." The words weren't shouted. They weren't aggressive. They were steady, commanding. A line drawn clean through the center of the table. The room held its breath. Whoopi opened her mouth, but no sound came out. For the first time in the entire exchange, she looked, if only for a moment, caught off guard. Jason sat back slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing, the calm returning like a tide. The battle wasn't over, but the momentum had shifted, and everyone in the room knew. For a long, suspended moment, the room existed in a state between shock and anticipation, an electric limbo where no one dared breathe too loudly. The tension wasn't just palpable. It felt like a living thing, weaving through the rows of chairs, crawling across the table between them, settling onto the shoulders of everyone who tried to look away but couldn't. Jason sat motionless, his posture relaxed, but his eyes locked with a laser-like focus on Whoopi. She seemed to study him the same way, taking in the shift, the unexpected resistance, the subtle reclaiming of ground. The audience looked from one to the other like spectators trapped ringside at a boxing match they hadn't signed up for, but were suddenly desperate to see through to the last round. Sunny cleared her throat, voice soft, but it trembled just slightly. We all value strong opinions here," she said carefully. "But let's try to ground ourselves. We're grounded, Whoopi said sharply, cutting her off. I'm grounded, Jason replied just as quietly. I am too. Their voices weren't raised, but the force beneath them was unmistakable. It was that pause before the hit sort of energy, the kind that made the air feel thinner. Sarah leaned forward, palms pressed flat against the table. Okay, look, this is clearly getting heated, so maybe. It's only heated, Whoopi cut in, because he's taking everything personally. Jason's lips tightened, not in anger, but in restraint. I'm responding to what's being said. Nothing more. Whoopi scoffed. Oh, please. You're acting like a critic's comment is a personal attack. Jason tilted his head slightly. If you'd offered a critique, we wouldn't be here. The audience reacted instantly, sharp breaths, soft laughter, tension-laced murmurs. Someone whispered, loud enough to be heard on the mics. He's not holding back at all. Whoopi leaned forward again, elbows on the table, the posture of someone preparing to strike, verbally, not physically. You think I'm just trying to get a rise out of you? Jason didn't blink. You tell me. The room froze. Even the producers off stage seemed to stop moving. Whoopi's voice was low, controlled. I'm doing my job. Jason met her tone with equal steadiness. And I'm doing mine. Sonny tried again. Jason, maybe you could explain how you felt the line of questioning came across, so. Whoopi spoke over her. No. Let him answer. He wants to accuse me of pushing for drama? Say it. Say it out loud. Jason finally leaned forward, mirroring her posture. Not aggressively, not challengingly, but intentionally. Matching her energy. You pushed for a reaction, he said quietly. Not a conversation. The crowd erupted, gasps, whispers, even a couple of stunned laughs. A woman in the front row fanned herself with her program. A man 2 rows back muttered. He said what he said. Whoopi let the words sit there, absorbing them like a punch. Then her expression shifted, just a fraction. A flash of something raw behind her eyes. So what? She said. Jason blinked, taken aback for the first time. What? So what if I pushed? She said, voice rising, not in anger, but in revelation. That's what we do here. We challenge people. We ask them what others won't. We push them to dig deeper. And maybe, just maybe, you'd rather throw a fake punch than take a real one. The audience reacted with a long, collective oh, the kind that vibrated through the air. Jason exhaled slowly. If you wanted depth, you could have asked for it. Instead, you started by belittling my work. That wasn't belittling, Whoopi insisted. That was truth. It was condescension, Jason countered. The word hit harder than a raised voice ever could. It landed with a weight that lingered. Whoopi sat back, folding her arms again, her gaze unwavering. So now I'm condescending? Jason didn't hesitate. Today? Yes. The restraining gasp from the audience almost drowned out the sound of someone whispering. Oh my God. Sarah rubbed her forehead. Anna pressed her lips together. Sunny closed her eyes for a moment, as if silently praying for a reset button. But there was no reset. No going back. Not now. Whoopi's tone dropped to something colder. You want respect? Earn it. Jason stiffened. Not a lot, but enough for everyone to notice. I don't have to earn what I've already spent years building, he said, voice low, steady cutting. But I won't let someone tear it down out of ego. That line struck with such force that the audience reacted not with cheers or laughter, but shock. Pure, stunned shock. Like someone had suddenly sucked the oxygen out of the studio. Whoopi's eyes hardened. So now I have an ego problem? Jason held her gaze. Everyone does. Some just hide it better. The crowd burst, shouts, gasps, scattered applause. Someone even yelled, Damn, Jason. Whoopi inhaled through her nose, slow and controlled. You think you're the first actor to come on this show and get pushed? You think you're the first one to get grilled? We've had people storm off. People yell. People cry. Jason's eyebrows lifted just slightly. And what does that tell you? That question hung in the air like smoke. Whoopi's jaw clenched. It tells me we don't sugarcoat things. Jason nodded once. And it tells me some of your guests felt the same thing I'm feeling now. The room erupted again. Sunny's eyes widened. Sarah froze. Anna muttered something in Spanish under her breath, shaking her head. Whoopi pressed her palms to the table, leaning in slowly. And what exactly are you feeling, Jason? This was the moment everyone leaned forward. The moment the entire room seemed to fold itself toward him. Jason's answer came softly, but the quiet made it louder. Dismissed. The collective reaction hit like a wave, an audible exhale, rippling from one end of the studio to the other. Some viewers looked at Whoopi with raised eyebrows. Others stared at Jason with a new level of sympathy. Whoopi blinked once, slowly. Then twice. Her face shifted again, something unreadable this time. Sunny interjected gently. Whoopi, I don't think he's trying to attack you personally. But Whoopi's eyes stayed on Jason. He said I've dismissed him. Jason nodded. That's how it came across. And you couldn't clarify that earlier? She challenged. I tried, he said. But every time I spoke, you cut me off. The crowd reacted, small murmurs of agreement, nods, whispers. It wasn't monstrously loud, but it was enough. Enough for the shift to be felt. A muscle in Whoopi's jaw ticked. Sarah spoke softly. Maybe we all need to step back and acknowledge that this interview. But neither Jason nor Whoopi was listening. They were locked in now, a closed circuit of tension. Whoopi tilted her head. Tell me something. Why do you even care what I think? Jason's answer was immediate. Because millions of people listened to you. The room went dead silent. Whoopi stared. Truly stared, caught not off guard, but off balance. Jason leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping into something almost confessional. I came here because your show matters. You matter. Your opinion carries weight. And when someone with that kind of voice reduces what I do to a punchline, he exhaled. It matters. The audience reacted with something unexpected, soft, heartfelt applause. It wasn't wild or chaotic. It was thoughtful, appreciative, emotional. Whoopi's eyes flickered. Not softened, but flickered. That's why you're angry? She asked more quietly. Jason shook his head. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. The crowd gasped loudly, as if the word had stung them personally. Whoopi sat back slowly, processing. For the first time since the tension began, she didn't interrupt. She didn't deflect. She didn't sharpen her tone. She just listened. Jason continued, voice steady. I don't expect everyone to like my work, but I do expect fairness. And if someone's going to challenge me, I expect them to challenge the truth, not an oversimplified version of it. The room filled with low murmurs. Heads nodded. A few people clapped softly again. Whoopi held up a hand, silencing the crowd. So what do you want from me, Jason? Jason looked at her, really looked. Respect for the work, he said quietly. Not admiration. Not flattery. Just respect. The silence that followed was heavy, but no longer sharp. It was contemplative. Measured. Waiting. Whoopi didn't respond right away. For a moment, she just watched him. The tough exterior, the unshakable confidence, both still there, but softened by something new. Understanding? Maybe. Maybe not. But something had changed. Sunny's voice cut through the quiet gently. It seems like both of you care deeply about authenticity. Maybe that's where this conversation should go. But before she could continue, a voice from the audience suddenly broke out. Raw, emotional, passionate. He deserves that respect. The crowd erupted again. Cheers, claps, voices rising. Whoopi slowly looked out at them, then back at Jason. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in recognition. This wasn't just an interview anymore. This was a moment, a turning point, a reckoning. The moment hung in the air like a slow-moving storm, dense and electric. The audience's cheers gradually softened into a restless hush, the kind of silence that vibrated with unspoken expectations. Whoopi's gaze drifted over the room, hundreds of eyes staring, waiting, weighing. Then she turned back to Jason, her expression somewhere between guarded and contemplative, as if she were seeing him fully for the first time in the entire interview. Jason didn't break eye contact. His shoulders weren't rigid anymore. The tension that had strung every muscle tight now shifted into something steadier, something that felt less like combat and more like certainty. The other hosts watched like witnesses at a historic moment, eyes wide, expressions stunned, unsure whether to lean in or lean back. Sunny looked hopeful. Sarah looked overwhelmed. Anna looked like she wanted to clap again, but wasn't sure if it was the moment. And then Whoopi breathed in, slow, deliberate, almost reluctant. So respect, she said quietly. Jason nodded once. That's all. Whoopi leaned back, her eyes thoughtful, her voice softer than it had been through the entire confrontation. Jason, I challenge people. It's what I do. But I don't set out to belittle anyone. Jason listened, really listened, which the audience noticed immediately. His posture shifted into something open, level. Whoopi continued. I've been doing this job a long time. And sometimes I push too hard. Sometimes I forget there's a person sitting across from me, not just a public figure. The audience murmured, a gentle, warm sound like collective empathy. Jason's expression flickered. Not a smile. Not forgiveness. Something more subtle, recognition. I get that, he said. And I can take hard questions. I'm not fragile. But I won't lie, what you said at the start. It landed wrong. Whoopi nodded slowly. I can see that now. A wave of energy rippled through the room. Relief mixed with something heavier, deeper. The shift wasn't dramatic or loud. It was human. Honest. Sunny exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 5 minutes straight. This, she said gently, is why difficult conversations matter. For the first time all day, Whoopi didn't interrupt. Jason didn't counter. They both just listened. Sunny continued, her voice warm. Two people can come in with strong opinions, misunderstand each other, clash, even hurt each other. But if they're willing to slow down and hear the other side, something changes. The audience nodded. Some clapped softly. Whoopi finally spoke again. Look, let me be straight. You're good at what you do, Jason. People don't come to see your movies because you punch people. They come because you bring something real to it. Something that feels grounded. Jason blinked, almost startled by the unexpected sincerity. His voice dipped low. Thank you. A quiet moment. A real moment. A necessary one. And then Whoopi added, Doesn't mean I'm not going to give you hell next time you come here. The entire studio roared with laughter, relief-fueled, grateful, cathartic. Even Jason cracked a small grin. I wouldn't expect anything less. The tension that had stretched the studio to its breaking point now melted into something warm and disarming. The crowd chuckled, clapped, even cheered. The air felt lighter, like someone had opened the windows and let the storm clear. But this wasn't the end. Because the moment the segment wrapped and the cameras cut to commercial, chaos erupted. Not between Jason and Whoopi, but around them. Producers rushed onto the stage. Assistants hurried forward. The hosts leaned back in their chairs, processing the emotional roller coaster they'd just endured. Jason stood slowly, rolling his shoulders as if shaking off the last remnants of tension. Whoopi stood too. For a brief, delicate second, neither of them spoke. The distance between them was no longer charged with conflict, but with something like mutual respect. Hard-earned, bruised, real. Whoopi extended her hand. Jason looked at it, then up at her, then extended his own. It wasn't a dramatic handshake. No cameras captured it for the audience at home. It wasn't for headlines. It wasn't for applause. It was for them. Authentic. Quiet. Necessary. But the studio audience, oh, they saw it. And they reacted with a rising swell of applause that rolled across the room like a wave crashing onto shore. Anna stood up first, clapping. That, she said loudly, was television. Sarah shook her head in disbelief. I'm never forgetting this day. Sunny smiled softly. This is what growth looks like. The audience rose to their feet, standing ovation. Not for a fight, not for a clash, but for the resolution. For the honesty both of them had shown, even if reluctantly. Jason shook hands with the other hosts, nodded appreciatively at the crowd, and stepped off the stage as staff guided him toward backstage. But the moment he disappeared behind the curtain, that's when the real explosion began. The View's audience couldn't stop talking, voices overlapping in a chaotic chorus of excitement. He shut her down, he really did. No, they both held their ground. That was wild. I've never seen Whoopi that shaken. Jason was so calm, like scary calm. She pushed too hard this time. No, she was just doing her job. He handled it like a king. Producers scrambled backstage. Camera feeds were replayed. Clips were already being prepped for social media. Phone screens lit up across the audience as people typed furiously, uploading photos and breathless reactions before they even left their seats. And outside, the internet was about to erupt. Within minutes, clips hit TikTok. Edited reels hit Instagram. Threads lit up on Twitter, or X. Fan groups on Facebook exploded. Reddit discussion boards went wild. Some comments praised Jason. He stayed calm under pressure, legend. He didn't raise his voice once. That's power. He handled it like a real man. Others defended Whoopi. She's doing her job. She challenged him, and he couldn't take it. That's the View, what did he expect? And countless users took no sides. They just loved the moment. This is cinema. This is why live TV is unbeatable. Jason Statham arguing like he's in a classy action film. Whoopi Goldberg going toe-to-toe with Jason Statham? Had me hooked. The confrontation splintered into 1,000 interpretations, 1,000 hot takes, 1,000 memes. The internet did what it always does. It turned a moment into a phenomenon. Entertainment blogs posted headlines. Jason Statham versus Whoopi Goldberg, the interview that shook daytime TV. Fans divided after explosive exchange on The View. Jason Statham's calm fury goes viral. Whoopi Goldberg stands her ground in tense standoff. Clips racked up millions of views within hours. Some slowed down the key moments, Jason leaning forward, Whoopi narrowing her eyes, the audience erupting in disbelief. Others added dramatic music. Some posted reaction videos, watching the confrontation unfold with open mouths and wild commentary. But the biggest clip, the one that spread across every platform, wasn't the fight. It was the moment Jason said quietly, "I'm not angry. I'm disappointed." That line hit the internet like an emotional earthquake. People stitched it, mocked it, praised it, echoed it. One TikTok user said, "This man just fathered the entire studio with one sentence." Another wrote, "Tell me that's not the coldest line in talk show history." A third said, "That's how you win an argument without raising your voice." And yet, amidst the chaos, something interesting happened. Many viewers, even those who criticized Whoopi, noticed something respectful in how she handled the ending. She didn't retreat. She didn't get petty. She listened. She responded thoughtfully. She owned her approach. For some, that made her stronger, more real. For others, it didn't redeem the earlier jabs, but they acknowledged the shift. Jason's team released a short statement hours later, simple and elegant. Jason values tough conversations and respects the hosts of The View. He appreciated the opportunity to speak honestly today. Whoopi, later in the show's after-taping segment, addressed the moment with her usual candidness. "I pushed him. He pushed back. Nobody melted. That's how it should be." The audience laughed, applauded, accepted it. No one expected the confrontation to go this deep. No one expected the emotions to crack open the way they did. No one expected the room to swing so wildly from tension to understanding, to one of the most memorable moments in daytime TV history. But that's what made it unforgettable. Not the clash, not the conflict, the humanity inside it. The way both of them, two seasoned performers, two strong personalities, two giants in their own fields, stood their ground, spoke their truth, listened, adapted, and walked away with mutual respect. And now it's your turn. Tell me in the comments, whose side do you think handled the moment better, Jason or Whoopi? Or do you think both were right? Or both wrong? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want more explosive, dramatic, cinematic breakdowns just like this one, subscribe to Stage View. Because this was only the beginning.